Hello, welcome to the Crypto Morning News. I'm your host, Taylor, and man, it's been a little bit since I've been able to do this, so it's glad to be back in the saddle and get into some of these headlines and really try to digest some of the sentiment we're seeing here in crypto. So let's jump in here. Some of the first things I want to look at is just Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price level holding right at 87,300. It's been able to hold up this uptrending line of support and also stay within this box right here that I have drawn that kind of illustrates the previous two drawdowns. So we are staying and closing weekly candles at least above or in that box. That is comforting for investors who are hoping that the bottom is in. Now, taking a look here at the MACD, we're not seeing quite much rounding just yet, as we saw back here and back here. We're anticipating that rounding happening, and we are south of that zero line there on the MACD weekly. Taking a look here at what I bought, going to go ahead and front load this for you all. I bought and I sold. I put this in a Discord last night, 5:40. I bought and sold a couple of different assets here, as you can see on the screen. What I bought was AVAX, SUI, Uniswap, Aave, Ondo, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and also the stock BMNR. That is Tom Lee's Bitminer. That is the treasury company, digital asset treasury for Ethereum. As you can see on the screen here as well, I sold a lot of stocks. Now, this is a little, when I went back and read this again, it's a little bit misleading. I didn't sell all my stocks. I sold, everything I sold was stocks. So I sold CFL. You're not going to know any of these names because we don't talk, these aren't crypto names at all. The one that might surprise you on there is SoftBank. I went ahead and took some loss in my SoftBank position. I just think that the Japanese story right now is a little uncertain. The rest of these that I took profit in are essentially all AI infrastructure projects, right? I think those are going to see a correction here pretty soon. The AI bubble will be popping, so to speak. Of course, I've expressed my thoughts on why that isn't necessarily true. The AI bubble is not a bubble at all, and its popping is probably not imminent. But I wanted to go ahead and free up some capital to buy crypto and Bitcoin at these levels. The sentiment today is bullish bet on structural crypto bottom. I think that a lot of very talented analysts, very smart investors are going ahead and allowing themselves to ask the question, hey, is the bottom in here? And of course, nobody really knows. Nobody has a crystal ball. But what they are trying to figure out is what is the probability that the bottom is in. And you can factor in a couple of different things to try to come to that probability. Fear and greed is at 15 out of 100. So we're still extremely fearful. 25 basis point cut in December is now 82% likely. Let's look at the live quote for that. So December 10th is when that FOMC decision is, currently 83% likely. And that's despite getting some mixed jobs data this morning. But the major focus for today is that the Fed is likely to cut in December, right? That is going to continue to be tailwinds for risk assets across the board, that money will be coming cheaper again in December, and likely marks kind of the beginning of a very long rate cutting policy, right? If they did two cuts and now they're going to do a third cut, where does it end? And that answer becomes probably further out than if they hadn't cut in December. S&P 500 only 2% away from all-time highs, so that's something to consider. And that is a major focus as investors have a renewed sense of confidence over on the stock side. Some of that enthusiasm may rotate over into Bitcoin and crypto as well. U.S. private payrolls fell on average of negative 13.5 per week in the 4 weeks ending November 8th. This is kind of indicative that the Fed must cut, right? However, we got another print that the jobless claims came in actually a bit more favorable than what folks were thinking. So very interesting on both sides there of that information. If you all are watching, go ahead and smash the like button and let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll try to answer them. But this is now the new time. This is 9:30 a.m. So let me know if you have any questions, and we'll try to get to them before 10 a.m. Eastern Standard. Good morning, says Angel of CV. So people are saying good morning. That's good to see. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent says there is a very good chance President Trump announces the new Fed chair before Christmas. Okay. Um, there's a couple of front runners in my mind. Fed Waller, who's an existing Fed member, and then also Kevin Hassett was announced over the weekend as someone who is likely to be announced as the new Fed chair. So those are two front runners in my mind. 14 billion in Bitcoin options expire Friday. When those options expire, there's a lot of talk about the max pain levels. I won't get to that in this video. But just know that when those options expire, it kind of resets the market. The tension that was there before those options expiries is kind of released, and then everybody focuses on the next contract for the following Friday and other major closes such as the monthly close and other things like that. But this is kind of a time for reset. So this could be kind of the opening of the door for quite a bit of a surge higher or a final flush to the downside before a resumption back up to 100K Bitcoin. Bullish vibes. Yesterday, Bitcoin, Ethereum, yesterday Bitcoin ETF inflows 129 million, ETH ETF inflows 78 million, and Solana inflows 53 million. Solana continues its streak of positive inflows. Let's go ahead and get a look at that really quick. This is what it looks like right here, folks. Just continues to be green across the screen. That's what you want to see. Somehow, though, it is actually tailing XRP. So cumulative total net inflows, 621 million, as you can see. For XRP, those cumulative net inflows are 622. While we're here, we'll compare this. Obviously, no comparison to Ethereum. Ethereum is at 12 billion, and even more no comparison to Bitcoin, which is at 57 billion. Okay, so XRP, Solana, they're in the triple-digit millions, but they still got that M signal here versus the billion signal that Ethereum and Bitcoin enjoy as they've had the head start. Looking ahead, we're going to take a look at December 1st, obviously extremely important because that's when quantitative tightening is scheduled to end per the Federal Reserve, not speculation. December 10th is that FOMC decision. And then the Supreme Court ruling on the tariffs is also a big note that we're anticipating. We don't have a specific date for that just yet. JP Morgan announced Bitcoin bonds. The product offers uncapped returns if Bitcoin falls by late 26, but surges at 2028. This signals to me kind of an interesting movement in the dance that MicroStrategies and JP Morgan are having. I think this is can be summarized pretty well as if you can't beat them, join them. And I think that MicroStrategy is definitely very intertwined with Wall Street at this point. Very intertwined. There's a lot of very interesting conversation back and forth, but ultimately, MicroStrategy's price is quite a bit lower than it was a few months ago, and you have to wonder why that is. How much of that is a reevaluation by investors that hold the asset, and how much of that is potentially MicroStrategy being, as Tom Lee put it, one of the only verticals to express short selling and to express bearishness on crypto as a whole for some large entities. That's going to make sense to some of you. For others, that's going to be more confusing than it is helpful. I apologize, but that is what I'm seeing. Texas became the first U.S. state to buy Bitcoin, putting 100 million in on November 20th at roughly 87K entry price. So buy 87 with a lot of other folks who were DCAing, including myself, around 87. It's hard to get lower than that. But if you have, let me know in the chat. What's the lowest you've bought Bitcoin or other assets during this pullback? I'd really love to know, folks. If you're interested in what is exactly driving this market right now, I really do think it has a lot to do with this spread here, this poly market spread of just the Fed going ahead and cutting rates in December. That is just so important. It's so critical. Other things to consider are these larger narratives about privacy coins. How much liquidity is that taking? AI stocks. How much liquidity is that taking? But ultimately, the granddaddy of them all, which is why I keep this on my screen, is that the FOMC holds all the cards. As of now, the TradFi system really is controlled and manipulated legally by the FOMC, right? When they can make money cheaper and they can increase the velocity of money, then it's no coincidence, it's no surprise that when they do quantitative tightening, that assets have a problem, especially on the long tail of risk. They have a problem breaking out. And that's what we've seen with altcoins. It's also what we've seen with small and mid cap tech stocks as well, not just tech, but stocks across the board over on the equity side. but that regime is coming to an end, both literally and both figuratively. The Federal Reserve is having to switch gears. There's a runaway debt, and unemployment statistics are coming out showing weakness in the unemployment market at a time that inflation is ticking higher and being a little bit stubborn in the way that it's not coming back down to that 2% target rate. This all spells pretty good road ahead for risk assets such as crypto and such as mid to low cap tech stocks as well. Now, the Mag 7 may continue to do well, and so may Bitcoin in this type of environment where the Federal Reserve is pivoting from quantitative tightening to not just quantitative easing, but also cutting rates. So that is the figurative part. The literal part is that Jerome Powell, the leader of the Federal Reserve and the FOMC, is likely not. There's a chance that he leaves before May, but in May there's a 100% chance that he leaves because his job's over. Right, they're only allowed to serve for so long. May 2026 is when Jerome Powell gets out of there. Folks, there's a lot of other things that are influencing this market, though. October 10th is still a big storm cloud kind of hanging over the market, although a lot of that has kind of been speculated on as much as it can be. There is still kind of a big question mark of who really was damaged by that big liquidity event. Was it just retail, or were there some major institutions that also got their face ripped off during that October 10th event? Is this structural bottom that a lot of investors want to call here? Is this really the bottom? And if it is, $80,000, 85, the lows that we've got to around here, these are not bad lows if you think about the overall story of Bitcoin. Considering this thing was trading at $13,000, $15,000, not in just 2023, for it to go up to 126 and then find support at 87 and get as low as 80. You got to think about it. That's a pretty good asset. And investors that may not have considered themselves as Bitcoiners, or maybe never considered themselves as even considering owning Bitcoin or Ethereum, they may be looking at these levels and saying, this is attractive now, especially if they're holders of Mag 7, which you can make the argument is oversold, heavily extended, as well as gold, or they're just sitting in the money market funds, or they're sitting in some other fixed asset, and they're saying to themselves, man, as these rates come down, it's going to be less profitable for me to hold these fixed income assets. I want to rotate into risk, and I want to rotate into risk while it's cheap. These are all factors that are kind of existing under the granddaddy of them all, which is the Federal Reserve. And all of them are pointing to a brighter future. I have remained bullish during this pullback. October 10th definitely threw me for a loop. It was confusing. The OG whales selling, true, happened, threw me for a loop. But ultimately, I have stayed bullish through the entire time. Have I felt negative emotions seeing the number go down in my portfolios? Of course, right? That's not a uncommon occurrence at this point in time to feel emotions based off of things that you're seeing. However, we don't act on our emotions as investors. We act on the information we're seeing from the charts and from the fundamentals, such as news and developments with the actual underlying technologies we're investing in. And for me, I haven't seen anything that A, hasn't happened in previous cycles, and B, really worries me about the future of crypto and Bitcoin. And I can also extend that to MicroStrategies. I think this dance that MicroStrategies has been having with not just TradFi, but also not just JP Morgan, but also TradFi as a whole. Many TradFi institutions have let go of some MicroStrategy shares in Q3. That information has come out. I'm not worried about even MicroStrategies. There's a lot of reasons for that, but ultimately, I see a very bright future for this asset class. I see a very bright future for the stock market as well. I think this is just kind of makes sense because we're transitioning from the granddaddy of the market, Federal Reserve, in a transitional period from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. And there's a lot of things that are different, right? Because inflation still elevated, and also the debt level is at the highest it's ever been. The interest payment alone for 1 month just exceeded $104 billion. So things are heating up. The Federal Reserve is having to change its priorities. And it comes at a time where the Trump administration, along with Treasury Secretary Bessent, are more than willing to help that shift accelerate. And that spells debasement of currency, folks. And the United States dollar is the denominator for Bitcoin, for everything, for MicroStrategy, for JP Morgan, for Google, for Amazon. And so as the dollar becomes less valuable, right, the purchasing power is squeezed out of the dollar through printing to pay for different government expenses and also pay to buy bonds. That makes assets more valuable versus the dollar. So I want to continue to be in assets. Am I in some cash? Absolutely. I am in some cash. But my overall expectation is that I will continue to be a net buyer of assets, especially at these levels. All right, we do have some comments here. We have some thoughts. Let's see what we've got. Angel said, "You are the first person, Taylor, who has got my name right. Angel of CV." Excellent. It is messed up what these big corps are doing to us retail. It's messed up. I suppose so. I mean, greed exists. We know this. It's only messed up if retail sells, right? And clearly, a lot of retail has sold, but that's a decision they made. I guess some folks were forced to sell, but probably they were forced to sell because they made a poor risk assessment going into a leveraged position or going into a position with money they couldn't afford to lose. So, do I feel bad for retail? Of course. But do I lay the blame solely at the feet of big corporations? I'm not so quick to do that. All right, let's see what else we got here in the comments. Snowy said, "Thank you for taking the time to do this. Hopefully the federal government can buy Bitcoin soon." True, true, true. I didn't sell, so I guess I'm okay. Good morning, Taylor. Yeah. Not everything is going to come back, right? Not everything in crypto. I think this is a moment of filtration, right? So just be aware of that. The names that I listed that I bought, you guys can rewind to the front end of this video. It's a live stream, so you may have missed it. Rewind and go check it out. This is a time where, it's filtration, and not everything is going to make it through the filter. Obviously, I think Bitcoin and Ethereum are certain in a large way, are close to certain to make it through this filter. But there's other assets in cryptocurrency that I don't think will make it. There's a long list of assets that I think will, but there's a even longer, much longer list of assets that will not. So just be aware of that. Just because you're holding crypto doesn't mean it's going to come back, right? You have to be holding the right crypto. And I would say that the right crypto is assets that are going to be valuable, that are going to be returning revenue to shareholders. And increasingly, those shareholders are folks on Wall Street, right? So they have a different set of needs than the retail that has participated in previous crypto bull markets. Okay. Somebody's shouting out Solana. I do like Solana. I have a lot of it, and I bought it yesterday. Bought more of it. Okay. Aerodrome, pretty good. I like that one a lot. I think it's going to do well. I did not buy that one. So take that for what you will. Thanksgiving is very close. I've been traveling, and so I'm a little bit shaken, a little bit like distracted, so to speak, because I've just been traveling so much. My mind isn't in the markets in the day-to-day as much as it has been in the last couple of months. However, this time away has kind of brought me a couple of different kind of insights, and that can be very helpful, is to take your mind off of social media every once in a while, to just let your own thoughts, your own subconscious kind of digest what you're observing in the world. And this is going to be relevant to relationships, to your health, but it's definitely going to be relevant to the markets. Let your mind digest what is going on around you. Don't just consume information and make decisions based on what others are saying. Take in high quality information, high quality as you can, and then take yourself away from the screen, away from influence, and just digest it yourself. I don't think you'll grow if you don't do that. So make sure that you are taking time to kind of meditate in a way and just process the things that you're doing. So Definitely do that. One of the biggest things that I was processing was the October 10th effects, right? Who was behind it, who triggered it, and who was affected by it the most. Um, well, of course, I don't have the answers to those questions. I feel that I understand more what the impact on the market is going to be if and when those names are released and become public to everybody, or if they're not. And so that's kind of what I'm really reeling over. I don't think that October 10th was what the market was expecting at all, and I think that it is a mistake in some sense. It's a bit of a turn of destiny for Bitcoin to come all the way back down to 80. But I do think that it was healthy. I think it was healthy. And I also think that part of the reason why we came back was that the OG whales were doing quite a bit of selling. And that's not triggering a bear market, in my opinion. Just to be clear, what I think that that's doing is redistributing Bitcoin. Right, it's distributing Bitcoins from concentrated hands, the OG whales, to folks who to thousands of other people who have much more diversity, much more decentralized. Right, and not just decentralization for the sake of decentralization, for the sake of decentralization, actual market driven, proper incentive driven decentralization. So I think that's good. And a lot of that selling from the OG whales is going to go to institutions, and it's also going to go to retail. So I think that that's good because that creates a broader base of ownership for Bitcoin and to some extent for Ethereum, which we've seen some selling with as well. Have a great Thanksgiving. If you're not in the United States, you don't know what I'm talking about. Look up Thanksgiving and do some research on it. It's a very interesting time for Americans and for those who celebrate that don't consider themselves Americans. Really take the time to invest in family. Don't get into arguments and try to win them. I would encourage you to think about just trying to learn from your family. You have probably much more to gain from learning what your family has to say, what they're thinking about, what they find important, what they don't find important. If they want to know what you have to say, they're going to pay a lot more attention to what you have to say if they ask, right? But if you just offer it up willingly and kind of force it on them, they may be a lot less receptive and maybe even start to argue. And that's my peacemaker, my peacemaker advice for this Thanksgiving. When it comes to crypto and investments, I talk about it when people ask me about it, but I think that family is probably not the folks to orange pill relentlessly. If they don't know that you're invested, then you can share that with them. If they're curious, you can share that with them. You can do whatever you want. It's your own life. But I would just say that the relationships you have with your family is more valuable than your ability to convince them of anything, maybe political, maybe health related. So just that's my peacemaker bit of advice for going into this Thanksgiving. Folks, I don't know if I'm going to be buying a whole lot more. I think I'll probably be deploying some more dry powder if prices go lower. But as we go up from here, I'm going to probably be sitting on my hands and holding a good bit of cash. The cash that I've been holding, I deployed a decent amount at the front end of this video. I told you what I bought. But now is kind of a time to just see where the market goes with this, because we've gotten something that could end up being the structural bottom. But we've got to see what the market does with it from here. We're at the 50-yard line, so to speak. The end zone is in sight, but can the offense actually get through the defense and start to push back through some of these levels before we can go higher? I think that we'll go higher, but we can also turn around and come back and go lower. All right, so just be aware of all of these dynamics and just understand that the reason that I'm bullish long term, the reason why I'm continuing to pick up these assets that may feel crazy to continue to buy, is because of the dynamics between the granddaddy of the market, the Federal Reserve, and what they're about to do, and how that has historically affected markets. It causes investors to go down the risk curve as interest rates come down and as quantitative tightening wraps up and pivots into quantitative easing. So that means that investors that were invested in bonds and gold, the least risky in real estate, they're going to start to trickle back into the stock market, and they're going to start to trickle back into longer tail precious metals, and of course into crypto as well. And this is going to come at a time where cryptocurrency is very underbought, very oversold, right? So smart investors have probably already started to accumulate positions, but they're not going to go and buy Nvidia at the highs. Some of them are not going to even buy Google at the highs, even though one of the most conservative investment houses, Berkshire Hathaway, just bought like $4 billion worth of Google near the highs. So just be smart. Try to think a step ahead. Try to take into consideration that this is the institutional market, and the institutions do not play the same way that retail played in previous bull markets. So this time is different. I think that the 4-year cycle is irrelevant. It is out, even though we've seen a pullback. I don't think that this has anything. I think that has very little to do with the 4-year cycle. I think this has a whole lot more to do with OG whales, kind of self-fulfilling prophecy phenomenon with the 4-year cycle. But those OG whales ultimately are selling into hands that are much more diverse. Some of them will sell later on, but it's much more certain that there's not going to be wholesale selling in the hands that now hold the Bitcoin that the OG whales held before. Those OG whales are a big reason why a lot of institutions don't buy Bitcoin, right? Is because there's too much concentrated supply of Bitcoin in the hands of these OG whales. So the more that they sell, the more interested that investors get in Bitcoin because it's even harder to manipulate. All right, folks, I'm going to leave it there. Have a great Thanksgiving. I urge you to heed my words to keep your experience light. Just try to learn and try to show the little ones love, that they are cared for, and also remember to say thank you to those who did the cooking, who prepared everything, and you'll be very glad you did. All right, adios, and I'll see you probably Monday will be the next time that we reconnect via the internet. Of course, we'll never stop chatting in the Discord. If you want to take advantage of the amazing deals that we're running for Black Friday, check out the link in the description for our trading group. That'll take you right to where you need to go to take advantage of our Black Friday deals. And if you do not have a VPN, make sure that you go check out our sponsor NordVPN, who is also running some insanely good Black Friday deals. If you are looking for a VPN, don't look any further than Nord. They are really the best, and they have one of the best deals right now on the market to secure your devices. See you Monday.